Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here again to really unpack some complex stuff and give you the insights you need. Today, we're plunging into something I think most of us have experienced somehow, the fascinating evolution of language teaching. I mean, have you ever stopped to think about how we got from, just memorizing lists of words to these super immersive language courses you see now? Our sources give this incredible view of how methods have shifted over time. It's quite a story.
Absolutely. And our mission today really is to explore the theories behind it all, the origins, and, how we actually acquire language. And maybe more importantly, how society's needs and, well, our understanding of how our minds work have kept changing how we teach and learn. Think about language itself. It's not just words, right?
Okay.
It's a whole text, spoken or written, a unified thing. Linguists like Halliday and Hassan talked about this sort of dynamic interplay of signs. It's one of our most powerful tools, and it keeps evolving, just like us.
That's a great way to start because it shows language isn't fixed and neither is how we teach it. If you look way back, ancient civilizations, their whole reason for teaching language changed depending on the time and the culture. Take the Greeks and Romans. For them, it was all about training, the brightest minds for leadership, shaping orders, governors. Language was definitely a tool for power.
Exactly. And it wasn't just about public speaking either. For other groups, like in ancient Jewish traditions, language was just as vital, but more for preserving culture and traditions, generation to generation, making sure their legacy didn't vanish. It was like a record-keeping system. What's really interesting is how early on language teaching was tied up with power, yes, but also preservation and very much elite education, completely different world than today. Even when Christianity brought in monastic schools and universities, I mean, that was a big step for language teaching, alongside things like grammar and music, but it was still mostly intended only for the upper classes.
Okay, so for a long, long time, it was basically a privilege
Mm.
for the elite or those with a very specific cultural reason.
Yeah.
So when did that start to shift? What pushed things towards, more structured ways of teaching aimed at wider learning?
That's the key moment, really. The ancient world set the scene, yeah, but the move to formal methods, that really started picking up in the 18th, 19th centuries. It happened precisely because those older ways just weren't cutting it anymore for what society needed. One of the very first formal methods was the grammar translation method. You see it from the 18th century into the 19th. And like the name says, it was all based on grammar rules and lists of translations.
Ah, right, the classic. I think a lot of us had a taste of that somewhere along the line. The goal wasn't speaking fluency at all, was it? It was about understanding the language's structure, its basis, and learning about its literature and culture, especially Latin for the upper classes back then. Lots and lots of memorizing. Probably rings a bell if you ever did Latin conjugations.
Exactly right. And look, it might seem old-fashioned now, but it did lay some groundwork for structured linguistic analysis. That stuff still matters in advanced study. But yeah, for actually communicating, its limits became obvious pretty quickly. By the end of the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution was coming to an end, and that created this huge new need for more real-life usage of language. People needed to actually use languages for trade, diplomacy, travel, not just read old texts.
Right, the world's getting smaller, more connected. Practical spoken language suddenly becomes really important. So how did that change the teaching approach? Must have been huge.
Oh, it was a total rethink. This need led straight to the reform movement. You had people like Henry Sweet, Paul Passy, pushing for phonetics, for teaching modern living languages. And out of that came the direct method, which was, well, the polar opposite of grammar translation. With this new method, translation and the use of the mother tongue were strictly forbidden. Seriously. The whole focus shifted to listening and speaking skills, trying to create this immersive environment where you learn language naturally, almost like a baby learns its first language. The priority was direct communication to build fluency faster. It was a massive paradigm shift. Language went from being the sort of academic puzzle to a living tool for interaction right now.
Wow, okay. A huge jump towards something more natural, more immersive. But, things keep changing. New world events, new challenges. They create new needs for language skills. What happened next?
Absolutely. The next big push came, particularly during World War II. This led directly to the audiolingual method. The U.S. government suddenly needed lots of people who were good at new languages fast, for science, for the military, you name it. And this method, it focused really heavily on repetition of exercises.